Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Chess for Life Spotlight. I'm your host, Elliott Neff, National Master, founder of Chess for Life. And on this channel, we love to bring awareness to the game of chess and the impact it has on individuals, communities, businesses, locally and globally. Today, our guest is Lior Caspi, a longtime connection of mine, a gentleman who's had quite a diverse background from a global standpoint, one who's succeeded well in his career in technology, and one who has been a catalyst for chess at schools, in his own family, throughout the community. And so I'm very excited for our conversation today. Lior, welcome to the spotlight.
Thank you. Thank you, Elliott, for the introduction. It's wonderful to see you and to connect, even though we are few, time differences, but away. I'm in Bellevue, and as Elliott said, I'm Lior Caspi, an Israeli and an American living in Bellevue, Washington, and loves what chess does to kids and how it changes their lives. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. And obviously, we've known each other for many years now, from when I first was launching Chess for Life to impact the community, and we crossed paths. And so before we jump into that story and how chess impacts, why don't we let our audience get to know you a little bit? Do you mind sharing, you mentioned Israeli American, do you mind sharing just a little bit more of that journey and a little bit of your background from a career standpoint, as well as what you're focused on at this stage in life?
Sure. So as I said, I'm Israeli first. I was born in Israel about almost 60 years ago. And in Israel, you have to serve the military for 3 years. I liked it so much, I served for 15 years. I was an officer in the Israeli Navy Computer Center.
Wow.
Went through programming and system analysis and was an officer for about 12 years of these years. With the Israeli Navy, I was in charge of a large software project that was developed in San Diego, California. That's what brought me to the US. I got to meet my wife in Israeli folk dancing in the Jewish Community Center. I know, Elliott, you're probably learning some new things. In the Jewish Community Center in San Diego, brought her back to Israel, finished my service, my extra service of 15 years, and joined several large companies in technology, and then kind of like transition to project management of technology and implementation of large systems. Since then, I am focusing on healthcare, implementing large systems in hospitals. Recently, I'm working supporting several startups, and one startup right now that is adding measures to mental health, and so it's mental health technology, and it's a startup that is built in Israel and markets here in the US, and I'm having fun with all that.
That's awesome, Lior. And obviously, basically a lifetime in technology. So you've seen quite a bit change over those years.
Yes, it's like as I dated myself, I started with technology when it was still punch cards.
Wow.
And my first large project was on punch cards in COBOL, and I have used multiple languages. The most common language I wrote code in was PL1 by IBM, and I wrote in Fortran 77, and then moved on to Pascal and all kind of other languages that don't exist anymore in pre-internet times.
I was going to say languages that you find in museums now.
Yeah. It's the days that we in the Navy, in the Navy, we used to say when the men were from steel and the boats from wood. Again, it's an expression that goes back more than 100 years, when the boats were made out of wood. And in programming is where you actually had to think about how to program and how to use a data in a way that is not just today everything is SQL and it's easy, and we had to work hard to get the data from the tables.
Wow. So this is amazing. I've got so many things I want to dive into, but before we do all that, still on the personal side, obviously you also love the game of chess. What other hobbies or interests do you have in your life?
So I love playing table tennis. And I think table tennis and chess go very well together. I am probably much better in table tennis personally than in chess. I have played table tennis since being a teenager with my dad in a veteran club in Israel. I was probably 13 when I started, and I haven't stopped playing since then. So table
Nice.
tennis is the big love of my activities, and I've competed in table tennis. I played in China. We can go into table tennis in a totally different time, but that will probably be the one that I would talk to.
Awesome. And of course, I know from our personal connections, you love hiking and running and outdoors.
Yeah,
It's
we are
such a
fortunate to
beautiful
live in the
world. Yep.
Northwest, and even though it's a little bit cloudy here, and I love the woods, and I took you on a hike in Coal Creek, and it's a beautiful place of the Northwest, and we have so many hikes and beautiful places to be in.
Absolutely. Lots of good memories from those connections. So let's talk for a moment here about the fact that you do chess, you're in technology. Let's just jump right into the question itself, where many times we talk about the STEM and chess connection, right? The connection here. You, with your lifetime of seeing technology shift and with your knowledge of chess, what would you have to share about that connection or overlap between the skills of chess and technology, or how you see it apply and what its value is for people who, especially young people, who may be considering a career in STEM?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that the first word that comes to mind, but there are so many, and you have that in your values. I think the first word is planning. And planning in chess, there is a whole concept of you create a plan, but the beauty of chess is that your plan is meeting somebody else's plan that potentially changes your plan. And in technology, when you design a solution, when you implement software in a workplace, you start with a plan. But as we say also, and this is coming from the military, the plan always changes when you actually doing it. So there is something about creating the plan. And I think the beauty of chess, when you get to that level that you actually say, okay, I have a plan, I'm going to attack on this area, but then surprise, my opponent decides to attack on the same area, or maybe actually attack in a different area, and I have to react. So I think that will be the first item that I would probably highlight from technology, computer, working with people, and planning of what to do and how to react.
Yeah, the planning process from that vision, that goal, that overarching objective into its milestones and such. And it looks great on paper, and it looks great when you're playing the chess game going, I'm just going to do all these moves and I'm going to go checkmate. And then you take your first step down the plan, and then they make a move you didn't think of. And so you have to adjust. Right.
And it
then
happens in life, and in life
Exactly.
too, not only in technology.
Yes.
It happens also with your friends, with your wife, with your girlfriend. It's like you think you know everything, and then you are surprised. And that's part of how chess is such a good, life simulation in a way.
Yeah. It's like a good medium for developing comfort with the unknown factors and yet making decisions. That's one of the beauties that I see in it. And in fact, I love this conversation, of course, because of our mission, teaching life skills through the game and preparing kids for success in life. I once talked to a gentleman who was retired from Boeing, who had been a high-level leader there. And I asked him, I said, what is the importance of strategic planning? And I was asking this question because of how often our planning goes astray.
Yes.
And he beautifully said, it's extremely important, but don't hold it too close to your chest. So in other words, it's a must do, but like we said here, don't put your blinders on. Don't be so married to your plan that you're unwilling to recognize the new information coming, that you must be willing to adapt and change along the way.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate that factor from a software and a technology standpoint, right? Taking into account all these stakeholders and the big ultimate goal and the various steps. And you may plan all these phases, but yet there's always more information and feedback and input coming. And so
yeah, you can take it all the way to a crazy picture of we are all pieces on a very large chessboard. As people,
True.
and some of us are pawns and some of us are knights, and there is like, unlike in a chess when you have a goal to complete the game, in life we are making up the goal and living life as we go. So that's that analogy stops there, but there is something about again, when I work in a large organization, you have different players that have different skills.
Yes.
And that's something that you can see in the chess pieces, different skills and different positions. So all these things are things that I know when you teach chess on a higher level, you start talking about, the skills, the positions, the space, things that, come, much later as you get really good at chess.
Absolutely.
And
from that basic level of the pieces move differently, and therefore recognizing that just because one piece may be considered more valuable because of its power than another, yet you cannot ignore each one because they have their unique way of moving, their unique value in the position, and learning to coordinate them, right? Working better together, recognizing and appreciating the differences and how together they can accomplish the goal in chess, just like in life,
exactly.
right? Every person I meet, I like to say this, every person I hire at Chess for Life, every person I meet is so much better than me in some way or many ways. I can learn so much from each person. And when you learn to bring those together and value those, what a powerful team you can have, right?
Yes.
And so, okay, so we've talked about a little bit of the planning side, a little bit here of the softer skill side, right? The working together and those. Let's pivot a moment and let's talk about back to the day when we first connected. So
Okay.
I remember 2002, I think it was, maybe 3, somewhere in there. Yeah. I had a friend who was coaching at Stevenson Elementary in Bellevue, Washington. And he asked if I could come along to help out. And I think that's about when our paths first crossed. But can you share, because I believe you were one of the founding members, shall we say, of launching chess within that school, Stevenson Elementary. Can you share a little bit of that story and what led to that and why?
So I'll start a little bit before, because again, life, so I have 2 kids. Lian is 31 years old now, and Aviv, that is 28, and I'll probably share a little bit more about both of them. And both of them, so my parents, Avraham and Tzipora, met in Romania in a small town. They both grew up in a Botoșani. It's a small town in Romania.
Wow.
And they shared 2 things that actually moved to our kids. They were both playing in the chess club in the school in Romania, and they both sang in the choir.
Wow.
And fast forward to today, we have a daughter, Lian, that is an amazing singer and sang in choirs, along the way. and did dabble a little bit with chess, and I'll get to that in a moment. And then we have a son, 28-year-old, that has played in chess and has been part of, our relationship, and we'll develop that story a little longer. But it all started with a kindergarten. My mother used to pick up my kids from the kindergarten, and before a lunch, or, and before they got, the daily chocolate, they would play chess. They started with checkers, and when they progressed from checkers into chess, and I'm talking about when they were 3 years old,
Wow.
then they start learning how to play chess. So before I met you, we moved here in January 2000, and shortly after that, we moved from Israel. I discovered that there is no chess club, even though there was something like that in Somerset School in Bellevue before Stevenson.
Yeah.
And I created the first chess club in Somerset after, several, I think there was something several years before, but I created the first one in Somerset, and I didn't know how to teach chess. And I found another coach, David Hendricks,
Yes.
from the Northwest, and he helped me. He just retired from Microsoft, and I met him also in the Microsoft Chess Club that I took Aviv there later. And I started the club here in Bellevue, in Somerset. And then when Aviv moved to Stevenson, in the beginning, the first chess club in Somerset, both Aviv and Lian were playing.
Nice.
And I hate to bring it, but gender played roles, and there were more boys and girls. And Lian, after a while, decided chess is Aviv's thing, and she's going to move on with other interests. And Aviv continued with chess. And when Aviv moved to Stevenson, we basically created the first Stevenson chess club. Stevenson was a school that also hosted gifted kids. So in a way, it wasn't that fair from other schools' point of view. But we had a group of gifted kids in 2 classrooms, and we created a chess club that was open for everybody in Stevenson. And I recruited you. I remember you and David initially. I don't remember if Harlan was part of that.
I think Harlan sent me the first message, and then we connected with you, and that was Harlan Lee, another amazing chess coach and individual who's impacted so many lives.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think so. I started the chess club over there, and I had several partner parents that were willing to work together, and we started on the floor with no budget, with a little bit of money to pay for coaches. Equipment was kind of like we just slowly purchased. It seems so amazing that we actually. And we were on the floor.
So let me interrupt there a second here. Okay. Here you are volunteering, taking your time to get this launched. Your kids have an interest in it. Was there another aspect to it that was just like, this is so healthy and good and there's a reason for it? Or was it more just simply, my kids have interest in it, I want to provide the opportunity for them? What was some of the driving force behind this? I'm just seeking to understand.
I think it was a combination of, it was first of all being a dad and having a connection with my kids on something that interests them, and acknowledging that it's not enough to have the interest only in chess with your dad or with a coach. They need other kids their age. They need the interaction. They need the competition. They need the challenge, and they need kids their age in order to grow.
That's beautiful.
I'm sure there are some very successful people in chess or in others that, grow in a bubble. But kids are very, very social. And I think creating that social setting in a club, after school, when they get together, when they have a common goal when they struggle and they win and they lose and they
Yeah.
draw, as
Yeah.
you have created
Yeah.
such a beautiful slogans in Chess for Life, and it
Yeah.
really works. I think
Yeah.
that was the goal of creating it. So personally, it was the connection, but also seeing how it impacts other kids and how it impacts other kids and also impacts my kids, but also just helping others.
So that's beautiful. I appreciate that, that recognition that there's interest here, but in the bigger picture, what's important, right? Not just the interest, not just a me focus, but a we focus, the
Yeah.
community piece, that collaboration together. And I love what you said about how even though your son and others were part of this gifted program, you ensured that in setting this up, it was made accessible for every student, because I know that school had also a lot of low income, diverse population. And so making it equitable that way is obviously a beautiful and amazing thing. So I recall being invited in at some point here to help coach. And if I recall correctly, there was interest in maybe even upwards of 100 youth in that school in participating in this chess club that obviously went from a small beginning to something flourishing.
Yeah, I think at the maximum that I remember, we ran 3 classrooms in parallel. So we obviously started small, but the interest grew, and
Right.
you are absolutely right. And it's something that in chess and in other areas, I am a strong believer that you should not leave anybody behind.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
chess and other opportunities are not meant only for the gifted or for
Yeah.
the people that are interested.
Yeah.
You can actually make a bigger impact on the people that struggle,
Mm-hmm.
because having something that they can learn and improve and
Yeah.
learn from their mistakes and enjoy in their success, you can actually make a bigger impact
Yeah.
on people that and kids that maybe don't have those opportunities. Because the
Yes.
gifted kids, and this is something that I struggled, and we'll go through the beautiful stories of what they have accomplished and all that. But some of these gifted kids, they had a private piano teacher,
Yeah.
they had
Yeah.
violin and all that.
Exactly. I'm so glad you bring this up here, and I'm excited to talk about what Stevenson accomplished and its impact on those things. But let's take a segue for a second here, because in my lifetime also of 20 plus years of working with tens of thousands of students, I've also seen this, what you're talking about, how there are gifted youth who are just, born with talent, shall we say, and then given lots of opportunity to develop it. And there's also those who may not be born with the same talent or may not have the same opportunity, or a combination of both of those.
Mhm.
And in dealing with these things, I see different challenges for every one of those areas. For example, let's start with the challenges for gifted youth. I've seen so many gifted youth, whether it's chess or music or anything else, with a natural talent, they rise very quickly to the top of their group. Yet what happens is, because it came easily to them, they don't always have the perseverance, and they
Yeah.
may give up actually sooner than someone else with less talent. I've seen this happen where they'll pick up an instrument, maybe start with piano and do really well. And then it gets, oh, now you got to really put in that work to get to the next level. And they go, wait, maybe I like violin better. And again, they have quick success and they go quickly up to a certain level. And then now it's hard. Oh, maybe I like trombone better. You see, and so they switch and they switch and they switch, and they don't push through that period of time where everybody has to go through the valleys on the way to the peaks.
Absolutely.
And so that is
Absolutely.
the challenge I often have seen with talented youth. And for anybody listening, whether you know chess or not, or parents listening, this is the piece of advice I have given countless times to parents is, if you've got a child who's interested in something, what a perfect opportunity to set goals with them and then talk about the commitment it takes to achieve those goals, and then measure their progress in terms of their fulfilling their commitment not the end result. Because this way, when they go through failures, right, those learns, those losses, you're still measuring progress because they're fulfilling their commitment to the effort it takes. And that will carry them through those valleys. And what a life lesson that is, right? To have that perseverance, to not give up. And I know I'm again on this long segue here. And then the flip side of that, right? The kids with little talent, what an amazing opportunity though, because any person can learn chess. And there's that thing about chess that it somehow has this aura of being a smart person's game, right? Yeah. Even though there are other more complicated games, yet chess has this, perception globally. And so when you have a kid who perseveres and learns the game, which any kid can do, it gives them that confidence. Wait, I can do this? Well, that means I must be smart. I can do. And then when they persevere through, what a great skill they've developed for when they're into careers or other, maybe they're trying to solve that next software challenge. Now they don't give up because they work through it.
Absolutely.
Anyway,
Absolutely.
I kind of jumped into that because that's where my passion obviously lies, with using the game of chess to impact youth and help them in their life, not just develop strong chess players.
Yep.
So anyway, I'm so love how you brought the opportunity to many youth, regardless of their background, their talent, their income level, right? Whatever. So shall we jump forward? What happened next, right? Stevenson has a rich history and a number of things that I was fortunate to be a part of, really valued that. But why don't you share a little bit further of your son's participation there and your work and some of the highlights of what occurred?
So I think the highlights were going to nationals with chess kids, and yes, you have to be special in chess in order to make it to those competitions. The beauty of it is really chess. I think from the US in general, there are ways to protect the kids to get small successes. Like in chess competitions, not everybody is playing everybody. There is a rating system, and there is really a way to kind of like grow into chess. And I remember the first chess nationals that my son went to, and again, it's the biggest joy of a dad to actually spend the time, even traveling with the son. These are the memories.
What
that
memory
carry
exactly?
And so in a national event, it's grueling in a way. It's like they play 7 games over 3 days, and every game can be up to 4 hours. And when you think about
okay, pause one sec there, because there's people
Okay.
listening who have not been in the chess competition world. And here you're talking, your son is in elementary school,
Correct,
competing in the national championships, and he's playing 7 chess matches over 3 days. And you said up to 4 hours per game.
yes.
How frequently did your son have a 4-hour game?
So I think in probably in the first chess national that he went, when he was really elementary school, I would say out of 7, maybe 2 were at the 3-hour,
Wow.
But most of them were like within the hour or maybe hour and a half. But there is so much that goes to that as a dad. There is so much coaching and supporting. It's like they start a game at 8 o'clock. You have to wake them up at 7. You have to fix breakfast for them. They have to eat something. They have to go to the bathroom. They have to brush teeth. They have to do all these things. They have to wake up. They have to go there with their stuff and sit down and wait for the director to go through the explanation and be patient and sometimes watching another kid on the other side, and sometimes watching an empty chair on the other side. Because a lot of things happen during these competitions. It's really hard, I think, in this time limitation to really transition this. But I would highly recommend for anybody listening to that. I think, and again, we are talking about nationals. There are so many chess competitions on a state level. that absolutely you start there. You don't
Yeah.
go to nationals first.
First,
You
yeah,
go
exactly.
to the state level, to the district level, and you have chess competition between clubs. So there are ways to kind of like build up to that. We are jumping through all these steps because it's so cool and it's so life-changing when you have that experience on a national level. Because those, when Aviv was, in high school, and we are jumping almost 5-6 years ahead, many of the games were over 3 hours. So
Wow.
out of the
Yep.
7 games, there were probably 5 games that were over 3 hours.
Right.
So things change.
So here you have, right, starting out with nationals. And of course, Aviv already had lots of experience in now elementary and local tournaments and state championships. And now he went on to the national championships, right? And the games are, several games 3 hours long. And as you mentioned, as he's up in high school, now 5 out of the 7 games are 3-4 hours long, right? What an incredible experience where kids will develop that ability to focus for that period of time with rather intense mental energy, right?
Yes.
Creating plans, calculating,
I'll just,
doing this. Wow.
Yeah. I think there is something also as a team when you create. It's hard to describe to somebody that doesn't experience it how chess can be a team.
Yeah.
But I'll just in a short try to describe, when you go to national, you go with 5 to 10 kids from the same school. They're friends.
Yeah.
In between games, they play with each other.
Yeah.
They do review a game. One of the beautiful part of coaching chess is actually to go after your game and discuss what was your plan and how did you react to different things. And that's where coaches like you and Holland and David were so special in Aviv's life. And coaching is such a key element that I would like to make sure that we discuss.
Well, let's jump in with that with just a tiny segment here. As we talk at Chess for Life, as you alluded to earlier, you can win, you can draw, or you can learn, right? There's no losing when we are getting better and improving, because that's part of life, right? Experiences that don't feel good are yet powerfully good in the long run because of what we've learned. And as you alluded to, in chess, one of the best ways to get better is to take those games played and to review them and learn through them and improve from them. And so this collaboration, right, of students after the game, working together, doing things together, getting to know each other better through this amazing experience over a 3-day weekend.
Absolutely.
Where you bond together and you work together, you celebrate together. There's even crying together, right? Because it can be emotional dealing with it, even though we know it's a learning experience. And yet, if you think about that applied to a person's future in life, right? When you go through tough stuff, how do you deal with it? How do you work together? How do you look at what you've done and get better from it? Just
absolutely. And you can see how the kids are waiting. We had like we took like a little conference room, and this was like our
team
room. And kids welcome their teammates, and when they win, they celebrate with them, and when they lose, they learn together, and they consult them, and they hug them, and these are little kids that you see the skill that they are learning. I don't want to forget one of the items that I wanted to kind of like talk about in simple things about chess. So one of the areas that I am thrilled about the game of chess is that every game of chess starts with a shake of hand.
Yes.
And one of the things that I personally am proud that I taught number of kids to shake hands correctly.
Yes.
Like to look somebody in the eyes, to be friendly before the game starts. Because there is something about you shake hands and you put your hand all the way through, and you shake the hand and you wish a good game. And the common practice is also to shake hand at the end.
And
You
for
know,
those
and
listening really
yes,
quickly who don't know, this is part of the etiquette of chess tournaments. Just like in soccer and other, you always have these traditions that are considered part of the whole game, which you don't ignore. It is required, in fact. And in chess, pre-COVID at least, you would always shake hands ahead of time and wish your opponent good game. And of course, during the COVID disruption and all, people became used to a little bit of virtual shakes or fist bumps or things this way for obvious reasons. And so this is part of that etiquette of respect and sportsmanship built into the actual process of competition in chess.
yes, and it's so critical because a second grader and
Yeah.
a third grader, in many cases, and again, in Bellevue, a very diverse community. We have people from tens of different countries around
Yep.
the world, and sometimes they don't have the skill or the example in their own home how to do it, how to
Yeah.
actually look at somebody in the eyes, to shake hands properly,
Yeah.
to wish a good game, to mean it.
Yeah.
And actually accept at the end a win, a lose, a learn, and shake hand again. It's such a growing experience that I did not want to skip in
Yeah.
this
That's
important
beautiful.
conversation.
Absolutely. So, we only have so much time here, and there's so much we could talk about. But let's just jump forward through a few of the highlights that you and the school and students experienced with Stevenson and with such. And then I would like to dive into a couple more things before we wrap up here in a few minutes.
Sure.
So, you mentioned the highlights of going to nationals. And the team went multiple times, multiple years, sometimes
Yes.
learning, sometimes winning, right? What's one or two that you would like to mention about the team in that regard?
It's always learning. They always learned, but again, I saw the progression. There was 1 year, then our team, and again, there is rivals in this space. There is a New York team and a Florida team and a California team, and I think the team from Stevenson at one of the years, I forget right now, was it 2005 or 4, won first place, and that was a very key. And again, a team to win first place, you have to have multiple players accomplish good results together. It's not enough to have one star.
Right.
And that star, for them to succeed as a team, they have to help his team members, and her team members. And that's so cool and so key to the process.
Yeah.
So yes, they
Encouraging
went
each other.
ahead and got the first place and came home with a huge trophy, much bigger than what you have behind you. we had to take it apart in order to take it with us in the airplane. And
Exactly.
and I think that was a very cool, but again, it's really, Elliott, and I think that more than many people, it's the process.
Yes.
I think that win is a milestone.
Yeah.
But
it's not the end goal.
Exactly.
Right?
You
even if in the
go forward, and
exactly.
I think that's the key message here. It's not about Stevenson got that day. It's about the team acknowledge and grow and learn out of that, and then develop maybe another players and come and create an excitement for more people to want to join and play.
Exactly. In fact, I'm going to touch on that even a little further. Recently, Magnus Carlsen, the current world chess champion, declined to defend his title.
Okay.
And he's been world champion now for years, 5 times, I think, now world champion. And he declined to defend it, almost as if, well, what else is there? And in talking about it, I found it fascinating because I dug into it to try to understand his mindset. And I think this is one of those pieces. He's always trying to move forward. And having done this 5 times, he was no longer energized for it. It felt like there's nothing to grow from here for him. But he set himself a different goal, which was to break a certain rating barrier that has never been broken before. And And so that became, this is energizing to him to pursue the next. So it's not about ever ending. And in fact, in Chess for Life, one of the life skills we teach is always improve. You can always get better. It doesn't matter if you won first at this tournament or last. You win, draw, learn. And now what do I do to get better? How do I keep improving? How do I move forward? And of course, we like to say too, in chess, it's not the end goal at all, because in chess, it's a wonderful game and experience and something that can support how you approach anything in life.
Yeah.
So the
you
value.
You probably want to talk about one of the experiences that you have brokered, when the Stevenson chess team actually played with space.
That was an amazing experience with Greg
It's amazing.
Shamatov.
And Elliott, I will tell you something. Yesterday, Inez and I, my wife, traveled to Tacoma, and we had the first experience of virtual reality in the space station.
Wow.
There is you wear the special goggles,
absolutely.
And you actually walk through the space center, and you walk outside, and you see videos of the whole thing. It's an amazing experience. But why don't you tell us a little the story of how did you come up with that?
I will touch base on this briefly, and maybe another time we'll have to do another episode where we dive into this further. But that must have been surreal for you a little bit, experiencing like walking through the actual space station when the Stevenson team was selected, not so much through any of my own personal efforts, but more, I would say, from other connections who partnered with the U.S. Chess Federation and with astronaut Greg Shamatov, who liked to play chess and was an astronaut in space. And he literally played a live match, making moves from the space station against the Stevenson chess team, who would collaborate on their moves.
Yes.
And so talk about a chess game that extended beyond our atmosphere into space.
And this is something that doesn't happen very often, when you have a team of players actually decide what is the next move. This is not something that we have in common. But that was a very, very cool moment in the history of the Stevenson chess team.
Exactly. And so many memories of them, right? From these youth getting to meet the former world champion, Garry Kasparov, and different things like this. And I always come back to this to say, and you look at that team of players and where they are today and how these experiences have helped shape them and help them achieve to where they've gone on. I don't know if you knew this, Lior, but I looked back recently, just even through LinkedIn, to look at some of these youth from those teams that competed together and trained together and went through these life experiences. And I found it fascinating that the vast majority are in STEM careers. And I was not really that surprised to find that multiple of them have been involved in startups, in tech startups, owned and launched tech startups, or are senior programming engineers and different roles that relate so well to them achieving and persevering through whatever adversity comes. And so it's been a joy to see that occur there. There's so much more I want to cover, but our time is really getting low here. So let's just wrap up with a couple more quick questions to you. If you were to look back upon your whole, lifetime with Aviv and such, what would be like a standout memory of the time and what it's done for your son and you?
So I'm glad you are. So Aviv is a special, accomplished young man now. He's 28 years old. He graduated from Cornell with a PhD in behavioral economics last year, and he's doing a postdoc in Stanford. So he's like, checking many of the amazing accomplishment. And Aviv speaks himself. Aviv says that having chess in his upbringing and his experience taught him to concentrate for a long time. Many of his colleagues that are gifted, and again, he went to Claremont McKenna School and as an undergraduate and had a Cornell degree, and he met a lot of gifted and wonderful kids. And his ability to concentrate, as we spoke in the beginning of this conversation, for 4 hours on one board. Aviv credits that experience with his accomplishments in academics.
Wow.
And that's something that, and I don't have a good answer for your question, but I'm glad that you brought up Viva. I don't have a one moment that is, it is a process. It is those long drive in the car to competitions. It is those struggling with other parents in a chess tournaments, having different cultures play into chess. I have close friends that I created through this chess. One of my partners, Prasad Siripurapu, was like my close friend and partner in creating the first chess club, so you can create a life friendship through that. And when we met, we played a game of chess, and
that's awesome.
He beat me, but we are still friends.
Yes. Well, that's awesome. And one last question. I really love to bring this out because you've got a wealth of rich experience, right? Technology and chess, parenting, right? Working with your kids, investing all this time